welcome to episode 2 of the Everyday Life Podcast, season 3. Again, let me introduce you to my host of season, Mr. TJ Joy.
What's going on?
So if you're watching this right now on YouTube, TJ and I both wore red, which I did not expect.
This was not planned.
This was not planned. I'm thinking I'm the only one going to wear red today. TJ wore red. 2 of our production guys wore red. It's a good color today.
I tend to wear what everybody else is wearing all the time.
That is true. We have seen that to be true.
It just happens.
We have seen that to be true.
Girls, boys, it doesn't
It's like when you hang out with your dog too much and you guys start to look alike.
Yeah, exactly. You are starting to look like your dog as well. But also,
Thanks,
if you're watching this or listening to this right now, I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest for this episode. My wife over here, Miss Jenni Bolton. What's up, wife?
Friends.
And TJ, who do you have over there?
This is my wife of 11 years. This is Malyssa.
Oh, come on. This is my wife of 12 years, Jenni. I'm just
quite 12.
You trying to one up?
I was trying to one up you. Anyways, okay, so listen, on this week's episode, we're going to continue to break down the new mission statement here at Long Hollow, that as we live out our God-given calling, as we're following Jesus and making disciples, sometimes it can be hard to embrace the calling in your life if you're a mom. Now, I don't know that personally, but that's what we have heard from you guys, and we're excited to kind of break this down today and what that could look like. But on every episode, we take a couple minutes and we just get to know our guest a little bit. So I have some questions for you. Okay.
I'm nervous about this.
I'm nervous about this.
You're nervous.
Last week I started a fight between Pastor Robbie and Candy. So I'm hoping that I don't start a fight here because we have to go home with these ladies. Okay?
Very true.
All right.
Very
So
true.
Melissa, first question's for you. I need to fact check something. Okay. So on last week's episode, TJ mentioned that when you were in 7th grade, you wrote in your journal that you would marry TJ one day. And I just need to know if that was true or not.
100%.
That was true?
Yeah. So when I was
I don't know why I'm so shocked.
when I was in 7th grade, it was actually in Sunday school. We made like our 10-year plan.
Okay.
And so I made my 10-year plan that I was going to go to college, come back, and marry TJ. And I told him, said, hey, we did this in Sunday school. This is what's going to happen.
Hey, this is what the Lord told me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Her
just
gift
goes to
is
show
prophecy, by the
if
I was
you,
going to say, she's got this gift of prophecy.
Yeah.
if you continuously pursue somebody and wear them down over time,
There you go.
eventually they will marry you.
Awesome. Now, was TJ, were you in 7th grade also?
No, he was 25 actually.
What? You were 25.
That is not true. That was not true.
He was probably 18.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad you guys.
I'm 4 years older than her,
Okay.
for the record.
Yeah, for the record. Nobody asked. All right. But I need the second question. I need to know this. Who said I love you first?
Oh, man.
Who do you think, first of all?
You, for sure. I don't know. She wrote it in her journal in 7th grade, so I'm not sure.
I was really funny about the words I love you. Like I felt like I love you was more than a feeling. It was like a commitment. So I always felt like I wasn't going to say I love you unless it was like I want to be married to you forever.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
So I just
Amen.
would say like I like you
A lot.
a lot. Yeah. So he told me he loved me for a while and I just was like,
Thanks.
I like
That's
you
great,
a
TJ.
lot. So then it was like a big deal when I said
Yeah.
It was super awkward, bro.
Yeah. How'd that make you feel?
Oh my gosh, for months. So I knew date 3 that we were getting married, and I told her that, and she was
Oh,
like, we'll see.
Wow.
So I for sure was the first.
Okay.
I told her I loved her, and she was like, all right, that's cool. And I was like, all right.
Oh,
awkward.
that's awkward. That is funny. Oh, man. Yeah. So I would say for us.
Yeah, I want to know the same question.
Yeah. So for
for
us,
Jenni.
Jenni definitely said it first.
Oh god.
But I want to say it was an accident.
It was an
It
accident.
was,
Well,
which doesn't make
I
me
mean,
feel.
in my heart,
Doesn't make me feel
How
any
do you
better.
accidentally say I love you?
because
when you're getting
I'm the
about
type
to tell a
person
marketer.
that, like,
Love you.
I say that to all my friends, like all my family. Like, I just always,
So
in
she
every
friend-zoned me
conversation,
and
was
said,
like,
"I
I
love
love you. Like, love you, bye, you know?
Oh,
And so
gosh.
we were talking one day, and obviously I did love you.
Did
We weren't saying it yet.
you
because-
do or you did?
Well, I'm just kidding.
Oh
I still do.
There goes that fight.
So,
I know.
yeah, it was just one of those moments where I was like, I hung up and I was like, oh my gosh, what did I just do?
Yeah.
Because clearly I wanted him to say it first.
Yeah.
To be the
And I
leader.
never let her live it down.
No,
Just so you know. So I waited to say I love you until I was putting a ring on her finger, actually. So I didn't say it until I was proposing. She just said it all the time.
So you're like, surprise, I love
exactly.
you. Also, will you
surprise.
marry
Guess
me?
what?
Yeah, that's a whole
Will you marry
nother
me
crazy
forever?
story.
So, yeah. We'll get into that on another episode.
Oh, we are?
We'll tell that one time. I don't know. I'm just making that
Oh,
up. So,
okay.
all right. So let's get into the meat of today. So today we are talking about living out your God-given calling as we break down the mission statement during this series. And one thing I think we've learned is that the calling God has on our life transcends seasons of life we're in or even what you do. And we believe that as a believer, that we're all in ministry. Okay. Like TJ and I, we might be pastors on staff at a church in vocational ministry. But as a believer, we believe that we're all in full-time ministry. And I said in the last episode, that's something I learned from watching my brothers who are home builders who in their everyday life cross paths with people who I will never cross paths with, but they have the opportunity to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And I have seen this lived out in y'all's life, but I can imagine that may be hard to kind of embrace in times when, motherhood may not feel like maybe what God has called you to do. So I would love to know, what does your journey kind of look like as you've maybe had a hard time embracing this as what God was doing or in your calling?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. So yeah, I would say, I guess to start off, like, I've always viewed my life, my ultimate mission is to love God, love people. And that's just looked different in all seasons of my life and how that's played out and which roles he's called me into. And so for this like role of motherhood in general, and then specifically feeling called to be a stay-at-home mom, it's just been one of those things where like that was a role that I played in. Well, motherhood will be a role that I play forever, but then specifically staying at home, I didn't really know how long that season would last. And so about 8 years ago, I've been a stay-at-home mom, I guess, for 8 years. And so it's kind of funny because as I was processing this for the podcast and thinking through stuff, I was like remembering before I was a mom and remembering thoughts that I had about like, would I stay at home, would I work? And I always remember thinking, oh, I'm definitely going to work. Like, I'm going to have purpose. Like, I'm going to be this, like, working mom and do it all. And, like, I remember thinking, like, I'm not just going to just stay at home. Like, that was my mindset. And it was just interesting thinking back of that because I never really remembered that until I was processing this. And it made me think, like, I began this journey already with the mindset and this narrative that, like, being a stay-at-home mom wasn't enough. Like it wasn't valuable, didn't have purpose. And so it was just interesting as I was processing this, I was like, that really was my foundation starting off of this kind of narrative that I didn't even realize maybe was there. And so obviously that bled into my journey and bled into just this like feeling like that as I was being a stay-at-home mom, that it just didn't really have value, didn't really have purpose. And so then insert actually becoming a mom and, all the emotions like your desires shift and all of a sudden you're like, I love these kids and like you feel attached to them and you're like, I don't know what to do. Like, should I work? Should I stay at home? And I did work part-time for a little bit. Yeah. And I remember it just feeling really chaotic. And especially remember a moment, as I'm sure you'll remember, one morning I started the sink.
Oh my goodness, I had forgot blocked this out.
And I had the drain in and I just left the sink running. And
Like all day?
Well, not
Enough
all
to
day.
overflow into our new wood floors on the
Yes,
kitchen.
it overflowed and like almost destroyed our entire, well, we thought it destroyed.
Yeah, no, I remember we had to like bring in
It flooded the
all kinds of
entire
equipment.
kitchen, living room, dining room on wood floors.
Somebody else did that recently in our bathroom.
Me? I didn't do that.
At least it was
Anyways,
a
you were saying.
bathroom.
I think one or two times in a year is fine.
I've done lots of other crazy things, but it was kind of one of those moments where I was like, this is a lot. Like, this is a lot to juggle working from home. I mean, well, not working from home. I was working outside the home and mom life. And that's just kind of funny, but that was kind of like how I felt at the time. And then me and Andrew prayed about it and we just felt at peace about me staying at home and obviously not knowing how long that season would be. But I just remember like going into that season of like, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. This is going to be like freedom and, relaxing and staying at home with your kids. And obviously I just had no idea like what was going to meet me on the other side of that. And it's had its own new set of struggles, right? We always think the grass is greener on the other side. We always think like we get to the different season, it's going to be, we have this perspective and expectation going into it. And so I mean, I think motherhood in general, like, would encompass a lot of these struggles, but I think specifically staying at home even has more of like a dynamic of struggles. And so I just wanted to highlight a few. Like, obviously, I don't want to sound like motherhood is just like awful
Yeah.
because, like, I mean, there are days. I'm just kidding. But like, I don't
For
want to
real, though.
sound like I'm just highlighting all the struggles, but I do want to be transparent because I think it's helpful as like all of these struggles have bled into why I feel like I've struggled so much to embrace like motherhood
Mhm.
and staying at home as a mission. So I was just gonna, and you can chime in too. Like,
yeah,
as
no,
you
I want to
relate
say
and
that's
stuff.
really healthy. I think what you're saying, because motherhood is one of those things like when I was growing up, my mom worked. And so I always thought that I would
Yes,
work.
Yes.
And I felt kind of the same way. Like if you just stay at home, like you're not like contributing and
Right.
it's easier,
Yes.
which is like both of those are not accurate statements about what motherhood is. And I also think I'm very like goal oriented,
Mhm.
and I like to have accomplishments to feel accomplished. And you get that
Yeah.
a lot in your
100%.
workplace.
Yes.
sure.
And you don't necessarily get that when you're staying at home. And then the other thing that's really, I think, unique to being a mother is that a lot of times as you're growing up, when you're like young and idealistic and you've never experienced pain or been deeply disappointed or anything, the things that you aspire to do, they're good things, like, having a job, completing a goal, having like being great in a hobby or having success. I think those are all meaningful and good and can be life-giving, but they're also all they all surround and promote yourself.
Yeah.
And what you want and what's best for you and your goals and desires. And motherhood is different in that way, that you lay your life down
Yeah.
to promote other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking this morning, my little precious daughter was running around outside, and I was like, ugh, she's so sweet. Like I'm thinking about when my older girls were that age, and like I miss it, and my heart broke a little bit, And people in grocery stores will be like, oh, your kids, you're so blessed, whatever. But I remember when my kids were that age, don't enjoy it. This time passes. And that's true. And you hear that growing up thinking, I'm going to grow up and be a mom and it's going to be great. I'm going to have all these lovely experiences. But like, that's not helpful to hear when you're in the grocery store and your kids are having a meltdown and some old woman who slept through the night and is at the grocery store alone says those things to you. And I think that subtly, like back to your point, I'll throw it back to you, is that you kind of grow up with this idea that motherhood is going to be lovely.
Right.
And then when you experience it and it's not, you're like, am I a bad mom?
Right,
Am
yeah.
I not fulfilling my purpose well because it's difficult? Because everybody tells me I should enjoy it and I don't enjoy any part of it right now.
Right.
And that's hard to say because it feels mean, kind of like what you said. Like
Yeah,
it feels like you're highlighting the negatives.
Like I should be enjoying this.
Yeah, but I think it's fair and good to say motherhood is the greatest, most beautiful, wonderful thing, and I would lay my life down easily for these children. And also, it's really hard and annoying and stressful and boundaryless, and you're going to cry a lot.
Working a full-time job
It's
sometimes, and where you feel like at the end of the day you've had all these, like you said, like goals accomplished and things that you've crossed off your to-do list, and you feel like good about yourself.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure.
But I think, like my counselor always says, like where expectation meets reality, there's always disappointment. And I think that I found myself there a lot in motherhood of like, you have these expectations of your life and what you feel like your mission in life is going to look like. And then when it's met with the reality of like motherhood, which on a day-to-day basis can be so like rewarding, but also like really draining and really frustrating. And so I think that I totally relate to that and understand what you're saying. I feel like for me, a big struggle was like loneliness. Like I am like an extrovert. Are you an extrovert?
for sure.
Okay. So we're the same. I thought that.
Let's
But
talk about this for a
I want to
minute.
be with the people. Like this is exciting right now because I'm with adults and we're talking. And so for me, I didn't realize how hard that would hit with like just being in a house with like little kids all day who you're not really having like these really adult like conversations, at least when they're like newborns and to maybe like 2. Then the conversations get a little bit better. But I feel like that was a big struggle for me. Is just like, I was like, what am I doing? Like, how does this have purpose? And then I would say like, I was thinking of gardening, which I know you're a professional
Love it.
gardener over there. Go to Melyssa's stories
Live
and
for
you'll
it.
see all of her gardening
Way more than you
skills.
Yes, you will.
She knows a lot about gardening. So you might not agree with this, but I was thinking like parenting is like gardening. Like it is like you're sowing all these seeds. You're tending the garden. You're planting. You're digging up. You're pulling out weeds. Like it's this dirty, literally dirty, hard work that's repetitive. It's like it feels very mundane, repetitive. And obviously, I've heard that maybe you don't really see the fruit of your labor till they're like out of the house, which that's like always encouraging to think about. Like,
Yeah.
It'll be 20 years till we see this.
yeah, totally see. But it's just not this like instant gratification, whereas sometimes like working or other things can feel that way. And I think for me, that's like made it really draining at times. And I don't really thrive in like a lot of mundane tasks. I do like to like cross my task off a list and all that fun stuff. Like, and obviously kids don't allow you to always do that and get your task accomplished. So I don't know if that's been something for you or you would agree with the gardening example, but
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
So how do you guys find that fulfillment? Like, I know that's been a struggle for both of you, but what are some ways that you're starting to see God at work as a stay-at-home mom?
yeah, I mean, I would say for me, like, I guess I would highlight two things that have really helped me to see motherhood and staying at home as a mission field. One of those being just building friendships with other moms and building community. Like, I feel like obviously I have many things I'm not naturally gifted at, like doing this right here. But I feel
Not true, by the way.
but I feel that one of the unique gifts, I actually haven't done the unique training, which I'm super excited to do. I know all of y'all have, right? But one way I feel like God has designed me, wired me, is that I feel like it's natural for me to build friendships, like, and just meet ladies where they're at. And I have a really big burden and a calling to just make women feel like they're not alone in their struggles, and that I can help walk alongside them and, speak truth, and they speak truth into me, and all that encouragement. And so that's something that early on I think I was doing, but not even really seeing that I was doing.
Right.
I know Andrew would say that.
I'm about to get on my soapbox about
Oh gosh, here it goes. And so I began to just like meet moms at parks and playgrounds, like fast food restaurant playgrounds, which can we just all take a minute to say, like,
We miss those.
RIP to all the fast food restaurant
Mila's
playgrounds.
2 years old and she played in the Chick-fil-A playground for the first time like 2 weeks ago.
Really?
It was like
They
she was
got
at
rid of
Disney
ours.
They were
World.
closed.
They got rid of ours.
They just
Now they
opened
opened it
back
back up. Some did. Some
Okay.
did.
Yeah. Well, sad day with that, but happy day, evidently. Some are still open. And so as I did that, I just, we would exchange numbers. And then sometimes that would turn into like, inviting them to church. Sometimes I would just turn into a friendship. Sometimes I would turn into, like using that opportunity to invite them to my discipleship group or a Bible study or whatever. So that started to get me really excited just to be able to see that God can use me right where I'm at. And although the days can feel long and mundane, like there is purpose. And I guess another thing I would highlight is just realizing the opportunity to steward and disciple my kids.
Right.
And even though like it's so easy, I think, and this is something I was thinking about, I feel like for so long, I've compartmentalized like ministry and mission. So like I've had a little box that's like, this is ministry and mission. So that's, events at church. That's Sunday and Wednesday. That's overseas missions. And then I have this other box over here and it's like, this is motherhood. And it's like, I'm not joining them together and like seeing it as every moment of my life
That's so
is
good.
a mission. And that's kind of like what we're talking about, right?
Right. Yeah, no,
How-
exactly right.
We've somehow gotten this wrong in our mindsets, even as someone who's grown up in the church, and even as someone who went to college at a Christian school and then, being in ministry for all these years and still found myself like compartmentalizing like my life.
Yep.
And so I think it was just really like eventually I got to the point where as I read books and, talked to other moms and I was able to really see like, oh my gosh, this is the biggest opportunity I have in my life to invest in these kids that God has given me to steward, and like just started to kind of dive into all the ways that, I mean, I don't do this perfectly and still don't. And obviously all these things are still struggles and I still have to wrestle with these lies and all of this. But it's like just realizing that there are so many intentional ways that I can invest and disciple my kids, and it really, really matters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing, even being like a foster and adoptive mom, just really seeing just like the deep impact of not having someone do that for a child, and realizing, wow, like all these little things and all these little seeds that I'm sowing every single day, and these mundane tasks of like changing diapers and consoling a child and waking up in the middle of the night, like they're not just for nothing. Like they all add up to deeply impact a child's life, you know, and for them to feel loved and secure and safe and all these things that I think we sometimes take for granted because they're draining, honestly. But I think just being able to see that perspective has really shaped and given me purpose in every moment of every day, like of motherhood. So
yeah, that's good. I think that compartmentalization, I don't know if that's a real word, but what you just talked about, did I just make up a new word again? Comparison. I make up words all the time. That's another word I made up one time. But I think that is exactly what we're talking about here. Like if you're listening to this right now, you're watching this on YouTube, like I think we often compartmentalize things. And I know you're going to roll your eyes when I mention this, but you have mentioned this before. You feel like there have been seasons where you're not doing enough because you're not doing enough here at the church, in the church programs. You mentioned Sunday, Wednesday, all that stuff. When it's easy for me to look at your life and say, no, you are living on mission everywhere. Like I look at your life, and Malyssa, I look at your life, and I look at all these moms. And well, let me give you this example. So we live by a fire hall, and all the time I hear or see fire engines and the ambulance rushing out to the rescue. And I often think, man, that is what I see in y'all. I see you guys, you ladies, rushing in when somebody needs you the most, rushing in when everybody else is rushing out, rushing in when they feel all alone. And no, it's not always within the walls of our church or within the walls of a program or fit in these boxes that maybe we've put ministry in. I'm doing air quotes if you're listening to this, ministry in before. But it is life-changing for people, and it matters. You know, it matters to our kids. It matters to the ladies at the park. It matters to all this. So, Malyssa, I'd love to hear, like, how have you seen God at work in this motherhood journey?
Yeah, well, I think one of the really hard things about motherhood is it is boundaryless. Is that a word? And
we can make up any words we
there
want
are
on
no
this podcast.
boundaries in it. And it's one of those things where like you aren't allowed to have burnout. So it's like if you're in a job and you don't like it, you can just quit and do another job. You can't just be like, I quit motherhood. I'm not doing it today. I want to do something else. And so I think moms have the tendency to kind of burn the candle on both ends. And I feel that in my life a lot. And that's just also my nature to be like, pull myself up by my bootstraps, do more, do all the things, say yes to everything. And like when you read the Bible and you see Jesus, it almost feels like from a mother's perspective. I was saying this in my D group last night. It's almost like when you're like wandering around the house and your toddlers are following you everywhere. That's what Jesus was like. He'd go to like cities and like hordes of people, like toddlers, would just follow him around. and he met their needs, but there's also times that he ran away from them to get rest. Like was like hopping on a boat, getting into the mountains. And they had needs too. And he knew how to meet his needs and find rest for his soul in order to meet those needs better. And so I think that is something that I had to work on. And so I think self-care is important for moms. I don't mean like going to the spa or shopping spree. I mean like, are you dehydrated, Mom? Have you eaten a vegetable today? Do you need a nap? You know, like basic things where like I feel like as a mother, I had to give myself permission to kind of feel those kinds of ways. And then I also think the way that I speak to myself as a mom, the things that I allow myself to think, being able to identify when those aren't true and then speak the truth to myself. Like as a mom, a lot of times I would feel like, what am I even doing with my life? Like, does this make a difference? Right. Everything that I have done today unless I tell my husband when he comes home, no one on the face of the planet will ever know it happened. Nobody recognizes the beds were made, or that the sticky thing was cleaned off the floor, that the doctor's appointment was made. And so in that way, kind of you can feel like because nobody knows what you're doing, that it's not important.
Right.
And I can say those things to myself. And so I think I've learned from counseling to say like, Melissa, are those things true? Like just because you feel that way, does that mean it's true? And I think being able to speak what actually is true, like the fact that you are staying home, Jenni, and doing these things for your family, it might seem meaningless in the moment, but for your kids, it builds like stability and safety and structure and a safe place. And like to be able to say those things to yourself, like what I do is valuable. Even if I have to say that like 27 times to myself. And I still have moments where I'm like in a puddle, like what even is like the purpose of this? Because my kids are sinful. My house is dirty. Am I a failure because it's not perfect? And my expectation for myself is perfection. And since it's never perfection, it always feels like I'm failing.
Yeah.
But then I also feel like as I'm married to a pastor. I used to like feel like people who worked in churches or like went to seminary were like professional Christians. Like they were like a higher tier or something than me. And I didn't come from like a particularly Christian family. I just went to regular college. Like I just feel totally regular.
Right.
And so I think it's really like freeing, or feels like I'm being seen, like just the idea of this podcast that like wherever you are, you can do ministry. And I think that's so true. Like even when your hands are full of kids, like who can you reach out and touch?
Yeah.
And for me, that's my kids. I'm always touching some kids and my neighbors. And I just feel like if if the people who are around me don't know Jesus, it's not because I didn't tell them about Jesus and pray for them.
Yeah. You know, sorry, TJ, you go.
No, I was just going to say, she was talking about how pastors are the professional Christians, but I don't know about you, but I actually look at them and say,
yes,
they
oh
are
my
the professional
goodness,
Christians.
I do the same thing. Yep.
Because for us, like we sit around, we talk ministry all day.
Yes.
We talk mission all day, but it's easy for us to be hypocritical.
Especially you.
Especially me.
No, I'm just kidding.
But here's what I'm saying. Like we can sit around and talk about mission all day from the perspective of the church.
They're living it.
They're living it. And it's easy for us to talk about it and not have anybody in our life who is far from God. And we may not be living on mission ourselves because we're pastors, we're around it all.
It's so easy to do the work of ministry and miss the ministry of Jesus. Yeah. And when I look at y'all's life, I see you doing the ministry of Jesus.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go. Go.
Well, I was just going to say, it just brings up a good point that we're all, like, I'm not saying that y'all are discontent, like, but I think that there's this struggle and discontentment that we all struggle with, and we don't even realize that.
Right.
Like, in my mind, it just looks different.
It looks different.
And I'll just be transparent to say, like, there's been so many times throughout my journey of staying at home that I've struggled with bitterness towards Andrew, like, and jealousy.
Yes.
Oh, come on.
I just said that to TJ like last
You got bitterness?
Just like jealousy in your heart of the
Getting to the
things
counseling
that you
part.
want that they're accomplishing that you
Where's Ralph?
like you're not being able to.
We need Ralph here. Come on, Ralph.
Ralph is our staff counselor. So whenever
Jenni,
we mention Ralph on the podcast, that's who we're talking about.
I do want to say I've been thinking about Philippians 4:13 a lot, which is like, I can do all things through Christ. Like, you hear that all the time, that you almost don't even like hear it, or you misunderstand what it means, like in its context. But the verses before that, Paul's like, I've had much and I've had little. I've been hungry and I've been filled. Yeah. And I've learned the secret to contentment.
Right.
And it is that that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
That's so good.
So it's like about contentment, like wherever you are, I think you need to like seek God's will on what your plan is. What his plan is for your life, staying home. But there's this piece of spiritual warfare to it, where I do feel like that's where the enemy attacks us, every single person on the planet, to be discontent. Yeah, it's universal.
Because then you're not embracing God's perfect plan for you right in that moment, you know? And so I think that's something that we've wrestled through a lot, is because I'm kind of like, he's gone to work. I feel like in my mind, he's getting to go do ministry.
Right.
And I'm left to be at home with the kids. And that's been something that I've wrestled through as like embracing my motherhood journey as a mission. Yeah. Like flipping that script to be like, this is a mission too, but also like just being transparent. That's been hard at times, of just that discontentment piece and disappointment piece. because I'm like, well, there's things I'm passionate about too.
Yeah.
And I want to go be doing all these things, And sometimes I feel like that's like bled into just like anger and things like that I've noticed how that thought process, just like our thoughts can turn into actions. Like mine's kind of bled out in anger.
Yeah, she punches really hard. I'm just kidding.
But just I can feel you can feel internal anger.
Right.
And obviously you see it. But like I've felt that anger of just like bitterness. And that's how bitterness takes root and then grows.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that I've had to like attack with scripture, like you're talking about renewing your mind with the truth, like reminding yourself that this does have purpose, this does have value. I'm exactly where God has me for this season. I mean, every season's different and every season can look different. And like not putting my identity in what I'm doing, which I think we all can struggle with at times. Like, but roles and, things that the roles that we play in life can shift and change. And so putting your identity in something that's solid and is, isn't going to change, which is that we're daughters and sons of God. Like that doesn't change, that doesn't shift. And being content, it's just such a journey, it's such a journey and it's such a process. And so,
and that's good. Well,
every day.
That's awesome. I want to thank y'all for making time for this today. Thank you for all you do for our kids and moms at parks and all those things. But I want to encourage you today, as you're listening to this, as you're watching this, our mission statement is all about making disciples as we follow Jesus in your everyday life. And we overcomplicate discipleship sometimes. We think it has to fit in this box and it's got to be this group and you got to go through this reading plan. And we think we can't do it because we don't know enough. But I want to simply encourage you to think of it this way. Who in your life, maybe your kids, maybe a friend, maybe somebody at the park, whoever, who in your life can you help take one step closer to Jesus? And it may be those knuckleheaded kids at home. It may be that other mom you meet somewhere. But those are opportunities God has given you. And I just want to thank you, ladies, for being obedient, even though it's a struggle, even though you have to fight through all those things. And TJ and I just see God moving in your life so much in these ways. And we're just so excited for all the ladies out there who can make an awesome impact for the kingdom. And dads too, okay? Dads are awesome. I just want to throw that out there for some stay-at-home dads. Like, why didn't y'all talk about us? So, all right. Well, TJ, you got anything else? All right. So thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Everyday Life Podcast.
Is that going to become a thing?
That's a thing. We'll see you next week.